Someone truly wants to build a relationship with you, you may still experience challenges. You may still have misunderstandings. You may still have moments of uncertainty. But you will not spend your entire connection wondering whether you matter. There will be movement. There will be effort. There will be intention. And most importantly, there will be a willingness to meet you somewhere in the middle. The first brutal sign that he doesn't want a relationship with you is that he keeps you trapped in a permanent state of uncertainty. He may tell you that he likes you. He may tell you that he cares about you. He may even tell you that he has never met anyone like you before. But then nothing changes. You remain undefined. You remain waiting. You remain wondering. And every time you ask for clarity, somehow you become the person who is asking for too much. But clarity is not too much. Commitment is not too much. Wanting to know whether you're building something together is not too much. The problem is that when someone benefits from your emotional availability without having to offer emotional security in return, ambiguity becomes convenient for them. They get your attention without commitment. They get your affection without responsibility. They get the emotional benefits of having you without having to make the emotional decision of choosing you. And you have to understand something. Confusion can sometimes be information. If a person consistently leaves you confused about their intentions, the answer may not be that you need to understand them better. The answer may be that they are showing you they don't intend to give you what you're asking for. This is where self-respect becomes more powerful than hope. Because hope says, maybe someday. Self-respect says, what is happening today? Hope looks at potential. Wisdom looks at patterns. And you cannot build a secure future on someone's potential while ignoring their present behavior. The second brutal sign is that he gives you attention, but never gives you real investment. This is one of the most deceptive situations, because attention feels like intimacy. He messages you, he checks on you, he flirts with you, he watches your stories, he appears when he misses you. He may even become incredibly affectionate when he feels you pulling away. And suddenly, you think, maybe he really does care. But caring about you and being willing to build a relationship with you are not always the same thing. Someone can enjoy you and still not choose you. Someone can desire you and still not commit to you. Someone can miss you and still not be capable of giving you the relationship you deserve. This is why you have to stop measuring someone's feelings only by how intensely they appear in certain moments. Measure them by consistency. Measure them by investment. Measure them by whether their actions move the relationship forward. Because real investment costs something. It costs time. It costs vulnerability. It costs effort. It costs the willingness to inconvenience yourself sometimes for the sake of another person. If he only gives when it's easy, only appears when it's convenient, and only becomes interested when he senses you slipping away, then you need to ask yourself a difficult question. Is he building a relationship with me, or is he simply maintaining access to me? Those are two very different things. And the moment you understand the difference, you stop being impressed by crumbs. You stop confusing a late-night message with commitment. You stop confusing chemistry with compatibility. You stop confusing someone's fear of losing you with their desire to build a life with you. Because sometimes a person doesn't want to be with you, but they also don't want anyone else to have you. And that is not love. That is possession without responsibility. You deserve more than being someone's emotional backup plan. You deserve someone who doesn't need to lose you before they realize your value. The third brutal sign is that he avoids every meaningful conversation about the future. Notice what happens when you ask where this is going. Does he become defensive? Does he change the subject? Does he say, why do we have to label everything? Does he tell you that you're rushing? Does he ask you to wait, without giving you any reason to believe the waiting has a destination? Now, there is nothing wrong with allowing a relationship to develop naturally. Not every connection needs to be rushed. But there is a huge difference between moving slowly and moving nowhere. Moving slowly means you're still progressing. You're getting to know each other. You're becoming more emotionally connected. You're gradually creating trust. Moving nowhere means the same conversation keeps repeating itself month after month, year after year. You are still waiting for the relationship to begin. And at some point, you have to stop calling that patience. You have to call it what it is. A pattern. Listen. The right relationship will not require you to abandon your standards in order to keep someone interested. If you want commitment, you are allowed to want commitment. If you want a partner, you are allowed to say that. If you want a relationship that is moving towards something meaningful, you are allowed to ask whether the person standing beside you wants the same thing. And if the answer is no, that answer is painful, but it is also liberating. Because rejection is often cleaner than prolonged uncertainty. A clear no can hurt you for a season, but an endless maybe can consume years. And I want you to remember this. Your life is too precious to spend waiting for someone to become ready while your own dreams remain on pause. You are not here to convince someone to see your worth. You are here to live in alignment with it. The fourth brutal sign is that he only comes close when it is convenient for him. This is the man who disappears when life gets busy, but expects immediate access when he wants your attention. He doesn't create space for you. He expects you to fit into the spaces he has left available. You are there when he needs comfort. You are there when he feels lonely. You are there when he wants affection. You are there when he needs someone to remind him that he is desirable. But when you need him, suddenly there is a reason. Suddenly he is busy. Suddenly he needs space. Suddenly everything becomes complicated. And you start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Maybe nothing. Maybe the issue is not that you failed to be enough. Maybe the issue is that he was never trying to build the same thing you were trying to build. You were building a partnership. He was maintaining a connection. You were thinking about us. He was thinking about me. And there is no amount of overgiving that can turn a one-sided intention into mutual commitment. You can love someone deeply and still recognize that they are not capable of meeting you where you are. That is one of the most mature truths you will ever learn. You don't have to hate someone to stop choosing them. You don't have to prove that they're a bad person. You don't have to make them the villain. Sometimes you simply have to say, this relationship does not give me what I need. That's enough. The fifth and perhaps most brutal sign is that you feel like you have to convince him to love you. Think about that. Have you started performing? Are you trying to become more attractive so he finally commits? Are you constantly adjusting your personality so you don't scare him away? Are you pretending not to care because you think caring will make him lose interest? Are you giving more and more because you're hoping that one day your effort will finally unlock his heart? If so, pause. Because love is not supposed to feel like an audition. You are not supposed to spend every day proving why you should be chosen. The moment you have to convince someone to value you, you have already stepped away from your own value. And I want you to understand the divine principle behind this. What is meant for you will never require you to betray yourself to keep it. That doesn't mean relationships don't require compromise. They do. It doesn't mean love is always easy. It isn't. It means that healthy love does not demand the destruction of your identity as the price of belonging. You should never have to become smaller so someone else feels comfortable. You should never have to silence your needs so someone else doesn't feel pressured. You should never have to pretend you're okay with crumbs because you'll be afraid that asking for a full meal will make someone leave. If asking for basic respect makes someone leave, they were not offering you security in the first place. If asking for consistency makes someone disappear, their presence was conditional. If asking for clarity ends the connection, then perhaps clarity didn't destroy the relationship. Perhaps clarity revealed the relationship. And that revelation, painful as it may be, is a gift. Because your greatest transformation begins when you stop asking, how can I get him to want me? And begin asking, is this the kind of love I want for myself? That is the question that changes your life. Not, does he miss me, but does he show up for me? Not, does he secretly love me, but does his love create safety, respect, and consistency? Not, will he come back, but if he comes back, will anything actually be different? Because someone returning is not the same as someone changing. Someone missing you is not the same as someone being ready for you. Someone regretting losing you is not the same as someone being prepared to value you properly. So if you're sitting there wondering whether he wants a relationship with you, stop listening only to the beautiful moments. Look at the pattern. Look at the effort. Look at the consistency. Look at the direction. And most importantly, look at yourself. Look at the woman you are becoming while you wait. Are you becoming stronger? Or are you becoming anxious? Are you becoming more confident? Or are you becoming obsessed with someone else's attention? Are you living your life? Or are you organizing your entire emotional world around the possibility that he might finally choose you? Because you were not created to spend your life standing outside someone's door, begging them to let you in. Your worth existed before he noticed you. Your beauty existed before he complimented you. Your purpose existed before he entered your life. And your future does not depend on whether one person recognizes what they had when they had you. Sometimes the greatest act of love you can give yourself is not holding on tighter. It is letting go with dignity. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself too. And perhaps the most important lesson is this. The person who is right for your life will not make you constantly question whether you belong in theirs. You will not have to chase clarity. You will not have to beg for consistency. You will not have to compete with silence. You will not have to prove that you are worthy of commitment. You will simply have to observe whether their actions align with their words, and then have the courage to believe what you see. Because your life is a sacred investment. Your heart is not a waiting room. Your love is not a rehabilitation center for someone who refuses to grow. And your future should never be placed in the hands of someone who cannot decide whether they want to be part of it. So if he doesn't want a relationship with you, let the truth be painful, but let it also be freeing. You don't need to chase what doesn't choose you. You don't need to force what doesn't flow. You don't need to convince what doesn't believe. You simply need the courage to walk toward the life where love is not something you have to beg for. Because the moment you stop chasing someone else's approval, you begin to reclaim your own power. And when you finally choose yourself, not as a tactic to make him come back, but as a genuine commitment to your own dignity, you become free. Free to love, free to heal, free to grow, free to meet someone who doesn't leave you wondering whether you are enough. You are enough. The question is no longer whether he sees it. The question is whether you are finally willing to live like it. When a man truly wants to build something meaningful with you, you may not always know exactly what the future holds, but you will rarely feel like you are standing in the dark trying to guess what you mean to him. There is a difference between uncertainty that naturally exists in the early stages of getting to know someone, and uncertainty that a person deliberately maintains because they don't want to make a decision. One is part of life, the other is a pattern, and if you have been experiencing the same confusion for weeks or months, if you are constantly asking yourself where you stand, what he feels, or whether he sees a future with you, then you need to stop treating your confusion as a puzzle you have to solve and start seeing it as information you need to pay attention to. Sometimes a man will give you enough attention to keep your hope alive, but never enough intention to create security. He may say he enjoys being with you, tell you that he cares, or even express strong feelings, yet when the conversation turns toward commitment, he suddenly becomes vague. He wants to see where things go. He says he isn't ready to define anything. He tells you not to put pressure on the connection, and you find yourself accepting less clarity, because you are afraid that asking for more will push him away. But ask yourself this: if expressing a reasonable desire for clarity is enough to make someone leave, what kind of relationship were you actually protecting? You cannot build emotional security with someone who continually benefits from keeping you uncertain. When there is no clear direction, you may find yourself doing all the emotional labor. You interpret his messages, excuse his distance, analyze his behavior, and create explanations for his inconsistency. You become attached not only to who he is, but to who you hope he will eventually become. And that is where your heart can become trapped. You are no longer responding to reality. You are responding to potential. The truth is, you don't need someone to give you a perfect 5-year plan. You don't need promises about marriage after 3 dates. But you do deserve to know whether the person you're reinvesting your heart in is genuinely open to building something with you. A man who wants a relationship may move slowly, but he will not continually move backward. His actions will gradually create greater trust, greater consistency, and greater closeness. If instead every step toward intimacy is followed by 2 steps away, you must be willing to recognize the pattern. Clarity is not demanding. Wanting to know where you stand is not insecurity. Your emotional needs are not an inconvenience. The right person will not make you feel ashamed for wanting something real. And when you stop accepting endless ambiguity as the price of keeping someone in your life, you begin to understand one of the most powerful truths about love. You should never have to lose yourself just to avoid losing someone else. Attention can feel incredibly powerful, especially when you have strong feelings for someone. A message from him can change your entire mood. A phone call can make you feel remembered. A compliment can make you believe that maybe, finally, he is beginning to see you in the way you have always hoped. But one of the most important lessons you can learn in relationships is that attention and investment are not the same thing. Someone can give you attention because they enjoy your company, because they are attracted to you, because they feel lonely, or because they simply like knowing that you are available. But investment requires something deeper. It requires intention, consistency, effort, vulnerability, and a willingness to create space for you in their life. This is where many people become emotionally stuck. They look at the moments when he is attentive, and use those moments to explain away all the times he is absent. He might disappear for days and then return with an affectionate message. He might ignore your emotional needs, but suddenly become intensely interested when he senses you pulling away. He might tell you how much he misses you, without ever making a meaningful effort to spend time with you. And because those moments feel emotionally intense, you begin to believe they must mean something significant. But intensity is not always intimacy. A person can miss you and still not be ready to build with you. A person can desire you and still not be willing to commit to you. A person can enjoy having you in their life without actually wanting the responsibility of being your partner. So you have to look beyond the moments that make your heart race and examine the pattern that defines the connection. Does he make plans and keep them? Does he create time for you even when life becomes busy? Does he want to know your inner world, your dreams, your fears, and your values? Does he show curiosity about your life? Or does the connection mostly revolve around what he wants and when he wants it? Does he make an effort to solve problems when they arise? Or does he disappear whenever emotional responsibility enters the room? These questions matter because real investment is visible. You shouldn't have to build an entire relationship from the small pieces of attention someone occasionally throws your way. You shouldn't have to convince yourself that a late-night text is proof of commitment or that occasional affection is evidence of a future. If you constantly feel grateful for the smallest amount of effort because you're afraid that asking for more will make him disappear, then the problem isn't that you're asking for too much. The problem may be that you have become accustomed to receiving too little. Love should not be measured by how desperately someone returns when they fear losing access to you. It should be measured by how consistently they show up when they already have you. The person who truly wants to build something meaningful will not simply enjoy your presence. They will invest in your place within their life. When you bring up the future and he suddenly becomes uncomfortable, defensive, or distant, you need to pay attention to what is happening beneath the conversation. You are not necessarily asking him to promise you forever. You are simply trying to understand whether the two of you are walking in the same direction. There is a profound difference between demanding certainty about everything and asking whether there is genuine intention behind the connection. A person who wants to build something meaningful may not have every answer, but they will usually be willing to have the conversation. They won't make you feel guilty for wanting to understand where you stand. One of the most painful experiences in dating is being involved with someone who wants all the emotional benefits of closeness, while refusing to acknowledge the possibility of commitment. They may tell you, let's just enjoy the moment. They may say, why do we have to put a label on this? They may insist that everything is fine exactly as it is, even when you are clearly unhappy with the uncertainty. And because you care about them, you may convince yourself that being patient is the mature thing to do. You tell yourself that if you give them enough time, enough love, and enough understanding, they will eventually become ready. But patience should not require you to abandon your own needs. There is nothing wrong with allowing a relationship to develop naturally. Healthy love does not need to be rushed or forced, but natural progression still involves movement. You become more connected, you learn more about each other, you develop trust, you begin making plans together, you become increasingly integrated into one another's lives. The relationship may move slowly, but it is still moving. The problem begins when slow becomes an excuse for permanent stagnation. If months have passed and you are still having the same conversation, still waiting for clarity, still wondering if he sees a future with you, then you need to stop asking only when he will be ready and start asking whether you are willing to remain in this position. Because your time is valuable. Your emotional energy is valuable. Your ability to love deeply is valuable. You cannot keep placing all of those things into a relationship that refuses to tell you what it is becoming. Sometimes people stay in undefined relationships because they are terrified that asking for clarity will lead to rejection. But avoiding the conversation doesn't prevent rejection. It simply delays the truth. And the truth, while painful, can also be incredibly freeing. You deserve someone who can have an honest conversation about what they want. You deserve someone who doesn't treat your desire for commitment as a burden. You deserve someone who respects your time enough to be honest about whether they can see a future with you. Because when someone repeatedly avoids every conversation about the future, the question isn't always, how can I make them feel ready? Sometimes the more powerful question is, why am I waiting for someone who isn't choosing the same direction I am? That is the moment you begin to reclaim your power. One of the most painful realizations in love is discovering that someone only makes room for you when it is convenient for them. At first, you may not recognize the pattern because the moments of closeness can feel incredibly meaningful. He may call you when he is lonely, text you when he needs comfort, or suddenly become affectionate when he wants your attention. In those moments, you feel important. You feel wanted. You may even believe that the connection is becoming deeper. But then, when life becomes busy, or when you need emotional support, he disappears. Suddenly, the person who seemed so available becomes difficult to reach, and you find yourself wondering what happened. This is where you have to learn to distinguish between someone who wants access to you, and someone who genuinely wants to build a life with you. A person who truly values you will not only show up when it is easy, they will make an effort when circumstances are inconvenient. They will understand that relationships require consistency, compromise, and mutual care. They won't expect you to be emotionally available whenever they need you while offering you their presence only when they have nothing better to do. Pay attention to the pattern. Does he make time for you, or does he only fit you into whatever time remains after everything else? Does he remember what matters to you, or does he only remember you when he wants something? When you're struggling, does he check on you? When you need reassurance, does he try to understand you? When there is a conflict, does he work through it? Or does he disappear until he feels like returning? These questions reveal more than romantic words ever could. You may be tempted to make excuses for him because you care about him. You tell yourself that he is busy, stressed, overwhelmed, or simply not good at communication. And sometimes those things may be true. But even busy people make space for what matters to them. Even overwhelmed people can communicate honestly. Even imperfect people can make an effort. You don't need someone who is available every minute of every day. You need someone whose actions demonstrate that your presence has genuine value in their life. The danger of accepting convenience-based love is that you slowly begin to adapt yourself to someone else's availability. You stop asking for what you need because you're afraid of being too demanding. You become grateful for the smallest amount of attention. You wait for him to decide when the relationship is important enough to deserve his time. And eventually, you realize that you have been organizing your emotional life around someone who never made the same commitment to you. You deserve a relationship where effort goes both ways. You deserve someone who doesn't just come looking for you when they need something, but someone who thinks about your needs too. Because love is not about being someone's convenient option. It is about being part of someone's intentional choice. There comes a moment when you have to ask yourself a question that may hurt, but can also change your life. Am I being loved, or am I constantly trying to convince someone to love me? Because there is a huge difference between the two. When someone genuinely wants to build a relationship with you, you may still experience challenges, disagreements, and moments of uncertainty, but you will not constantly feel as though you are competing for their attention or proving why you deserve to be chosen. You won't feel like you have to become a completely different version of yourself just to keep their interest. But when you start feeling that you have to convince someone to love you, everything changes. You begin analyzing every word you say. You wonder whether you texted too quickly. You question whether you were too emotional, too independent, too affectionate, or not affectionate enough. You start changing your behavior based on what you think will make him stay. You hide your needs because you're afraid that expressing them will push him away. You pretend not to care because you believe caring too much will make you seem less attractive. Slowly, without even realizing it, you begin abandoning yourself in the hope of being accepted by someone else. And this is where you have to stop. You were never meant to earn someone's love by becoming smaller. You were never meant to silence your heart just to make another person comfortable. You were never meant to perform for affection. constantly wondering what version of yourself will finally make someone say, "Yes, I choose you." The truth is that the right relationship does not require you to audition for your place in someone's life. This does not mean that relationships require no effort. Of course they do. Love requires patience, communication, compromise, and personal growth. But there is a difference between growing together and constantly trying to prove that you are worthy of being kept. If you have to overgive to receive basic attention, that is not balance. If you have to chase to receive communication, that is not consistency. If you have to ignore your own needs to prevent someone from leaving, that is not emotional security. And if someone only seems interested when you are pulling away, you must be careful not to confuse their fear of losing access to you with a genuine desire to build a relationship with you. Someone can be afraid to lose you without being willing to love you properly. That realization can be painful, but it is also empowering. Because once you understand it, you stop trying to manipulate the situation through endless giving. You stop asking yourself how much more you need to do. You stop thinking that if you become more beautiful, more understanding, more patient, or more available, someone will finally choose you. You begin to understand that love should be mutual. You should be able to bring your authentic self into a relationship without constantly fearing that your needs will cause someone to disappear. You should be able to communicate honestly without feeling that every conversation is a test. You might fail. You should be able to receive love without having to earn every drop of it. And perhaps the greatest act of self-respect is realizing that you don't need to convince the right person of your value. The person who is truly capable of building something meaningful with you will recognize your worth through your presence, your character, and your heart. You will still need to communicate and grow together, but you will not spend your life begging someone to see what you already know to be true about yourself. There is a point in every confusing relationship where you have to stop listening only to what someone says and start paying attention to what they repeatedly do. Words can be beautiful. They can create hope, excitement, and emotional attachment. Someone can tell you that they care about you, that they miss you, that they are not ready right now, but might be someday. They can promise that things will change, apologize after hurting you, and tell you exactly what you want to hear in the moment. But if their behavior consistently contradicts their words, you have to be brave enough to believe the pattern rather than the promise. This is one of the hardest lessons in relationships, because we naturally want to believe the contra, what we love. When you have feelings for a person, you often give their words more weight than their actions, because their words keep your hope alive. You tell yourself that maybe they are confused, maybe they are afraid, maybe they have been hurt before, maybe they simply need more time. And while all of these things can sometimes be true, none of them change the reality of what you are experiencing. If someone repeatedly says they care but consistently disappears, you have to look at the disappearance. If they say they want you but never make room for you, look at the lack of effort. If they say they see a future with you but refuse to take even one meaningful step toward creating it, look at the absence of movement. The truth is that actions don't always tell you everything about someone's feelings, but they tell you a great deal about their priorities, their readiness, and their capacity to show up. You cannot build a relationship with potential alone. Potential is not commitment. Chemistry is not compatibility. Promises are not progress. And missing someone is not the same as being prepared to love them in a healthy and consistent way. Sometimes a person genuinely has feelings for you, but still cannot give you the relationship you need. That is an important distinction. You don't have to convince yourself that they are heartless or that everything they ever said was a lie. Perhaps they do care. Perhaps they do have feelings. But if their behavior continually leaves you emotionally exhausted, constantly uncertain, and perpetually waiting, then their feelings are not translating into the kind of relationship you deserve. And this is where you have to stop asking, what does he really feel? And start asking, what is his behavior creating in my life? Is it creating peace or anxiety? Security or confusion? Growth or stagnation? Mutuality or emotional exhaustion? Those answers matter, because the goal is not simply to find someone who has feelings for you. The goal is to find someone whose feelings are strong enough, mature enough, and intentional enough to be expressed through consistent action. You don't need to decode someone who is consistently choosing you. You don't need to spend every night analyzing whether a delayed response secretly means they are afraid of their feelings. You don't need to build an entire relationship out of hints and possibilities. Believe the pattern, not because people never change, but because you deserve to make decisions based on reality, rather than waiting indefinitely for a future that someone has never demonstrated they are willing to create. The greatest lesson is this: you should never have to convince someone to choose you, chase someone for clarity, or constantly question whether you are worthy of love. When a man doesn't want a relationship with you, his actions will eventually reveal what his words try to hide. He may give you attention without investment, keep you trapped in uncertainty, avoid conversations about the future, appear only when it is convenient, or make you feel as though you have to prove your worth. But your purpose is not to persuade someone into loving you. Your purpose is to recognize your value, and have the courage to walk away from anything that not consistently makes you feel unwanted, confused, or unworthy. The right person will not require you to abandon yourself to keep them. Choose clarity over confusion, consistency over occasional attention, and self-respect over the fear of losing someone. Sometimes losing the wrong person is how you finally make room for the right love to